Thing number four, Gary, we're moving to the Bank of England. Thing number four on this week's version of the Trump Bitcoin issue, Bank of England rate cut.
Alex, you are our resident British subject.
Add that to the title.
Yeah,
Yes.
quite the mouthful.
Wait, hold on. Here's what I want to know. So they cut their rates, their version of the Fed funds rate by 25 basis points, right?
That's correct.
So
Yeah.
and they did that what a week ago?
Yeah, I believe it was on Thursday.
All right, so resolve this for us. Is the economy roaring now? Is everything better? Is everyone back to work?
Well, actually, in the last few days, it's been a little more challenging. There's been a little bit of social unrest around the UK, and quite a few riots, actually. So I think this kind of the narrative of inflation has been pushed back, and I think other priorities are being taken. But I think it will be interesting to see how the Bank of England try and kickstart the economy again to kind of help some of these kind of unemployment issues and social issues that are seem to be taking over many cities around the UK.
So walk us through it. What are they thinking there? What data were they looking at? Was it a close vote? Did here in the US, one of the things you notice is that almost all Federal Reserve actions are by unanimous decision. They might have 2 days of heated debate behind closed doors, but when they're issuing a press release, it always says this is unanimous. We all agree. There are very few outliers to that. What happens in the UK for this? What data are they looking at? How are the decisions made? Are they close? Are they unanimous? What should we know as Americans who want to understand the British economy and the Bank of England better?
So Andrew Bailey put out a statement on the Bank of England website. He put it on his LinkedIn as well, which is where I watched it. And his rationale for cutting rates was purely inflation based. And he was saying how inflation, I think at the peak was 11.2%, and just recently they've got it down to 2%. Um, the way that it works is there are nine members. They all vote, and this time it was pretty close. So it was 5-4, the deciding vote. Andrew Bailey, the governor of the Bank of England, in favour of cutting interest rates. And his going back to what he was saying, it was because inflation was back down to that 2% target. And he said a lot of the inflationary pressures that came from COVID and the war in Ukraine, those kind of shocks have faded. I believe that's the language he used.
Got it. So when you talk about inflation in the UK being down to 2%,
Mhm.
that's the official number. Do you believe that? Because one of the things we talk about here is people use the CPI, the Consumer Price Index, as the marker for inflation. But we've spent the last 3 years telling people how and why the CPI is understated intentionally. How's it work over there? Like, is inflation really 2%? What are you seeing? What are people seeing?
So I'm kind of the CPI is a metric that is used that gives you a figure in kind of a scalar, right? 2%, 3%, whatever. But inflation truly is more it's more of a vector, and it affects different areas of the economy differently. After kind of COVID and Ukraine, I believe the UK out of Europe was most impacted by energy prices. I before coming to DKI, I worked at a bar just across the street, and our energy prices tripled just after COVID, which was obviously, I mean, it's crazy. Housing is still very, very expensive. I'm moving into a house next year at university, and that's a lot more than what my parents were paying when they were studying at university. But I think overall, I think inflation, the rate at which prices are going up, definitely has gone down, but things are still very, very expensive, and it's very difficult, and everyone has to kind of in their way manage their money more so than they did 5, 10, 15 years ago.
So I think I want to highlight a key point that Alex is making here. And economists and market observers, they all focus on disinflation, which is, a slowdown in the rate of change. It's a second derivative for those of you who remember your high school calculus. But basically, people who do what we do for a living often look at the rate of change. The issue is that we had so many years of high inflation, and those higher prices are now a permanent part of people's expense structure. And so if you have a situation where people's lives become unaffordable or close to unaffordable, and you get inflation down to 1%, 2%, something that we'd consider to be reasonable, that doesn't mean that they can afford it. It means inflation has come down, but their rent may be higher, or their food bill might be higher, or their fuel bill might be higher, and those prices are not coming down.
Alex, anything else to add to that final point?
No, I mean, I think what I would say is I'm lucky that I live in the UK, in the sense that there are many other people in many other countries around the world that deal with much worse inflation. So I am still very fortunate in that regard, but I do know a lot of people are struggling with it, but it's good that it's come down from its peak. We'll see if it can stay there.